Okay, guys, it's Mr. Miles back to explain culture, time, and place. Okay, so culture, time, and place are going to come up all the time in a long walk to water, all the time. Okay, and so we want to talk about defining culture, time, and place before we get into the activities that require you to do things with them. Okay, so let's talk about. Let me move my bad dude over here. Let's talk about what is culture, right? I like them down here better. All right, what is culture? Right? So we have a culture is kind of all of these things together, right? Your attitudes, your beliefs, your language, your customs, rituals, behaviors, faith and religion, food, art, drama, music, holiday, family traditions, all that stuff comes together to create your culture. And you can see this kind of cool thing picture over here that talks about just a wide variety of culture, right? It's what makes you you and how you are defined as you and all that. Okay? So what's time? Well, it's more like a time period, right? So if we think about our book, we think about the time periods in which Salva and Nia are taking place, 1985 and 2008. Or like, hey, back in those days, I walked to school uphill both ways in the snow, barefooted, right? You've heard your grandparents say that. Or during those times, or the baby boomer generation, or all sorts of stuff, right? So what was happening in the world during that time that affected people, right? So for Salva, it was a civil war, right? What was happening in the world in that time, that was definitely affecting him in that time period. Okay. What was technology like? Transportation, communication. How was the medical care? Right. What was access to things? Different a time period. How does time affect people as individuals? Right. And you can see our schoolhouse here. Right. Obviously old. Obviously learning. Obviously like maybe early 1900s, somewhere around. How is that different from today? Pretty different, right? Okay. So what is place, right? These are familiar phrases like people who live here must do this, or in that area they do this, or over here they eat that, right? So you're identified by your location, correct? Like if you're from New York, maybe you've got a thick accent, right? If you're from the South, you'd say like, "Hey, y'all, howdy," which I'm born and raised in the South. So maybe I have an accent to people who aren't from around here. And then you got to think about in that place, like what resources do you have the access to? Like for Nia's story, her place is in Sudan, and 2008 is her time period. We haven't learned much about her culture yet, other than how they retrieve water, but she doesn't have access to clean water. And we got the image of her walking with the gourd on her head, right? That's the resources that are not available in her place. So you can see an idea just to give you kind of a quick perspective of, we saw some images early on about where Nia and Salva could possibly have lived. But if you went to a new place, would you feel at home? Right? And that idea of place is going to become important as we learn more about Salva and Nia's story. Right? So let's do a quick little recap of culture, time, and place. Okay. For dinner, we're having miso soup and rice with our new chopsticks. You think it's culture, time, or place? Talk about culture, right? Food is the thing that we identify with. My stepmom is Filipino, and the food that she prepares is very different than what my mom prepares, who grew up in North Carolina, right? And so that culture of food is so significant. And you guys probably identify a lot of your family gatherings as food, right? And that's a part of our culture. So then you talk about if we lived in a small cottage next to a stream far away from the city, I'd like to check my email, but had to ride my bike to a library, which is 25 miles away. So here's a quaint little cottage up in the mountains. Library is 25 miles away with internet, culture, time, and place. We're looking at place because based on your place, your location, you didn't have access to stuff, but you also have access to nature, right? And that would definitely affect you as a person and how your identity would change, right? You would not be used to having Wi Fi in your house or being able to do remote learning from your house. My brothers always got to help Papa out in the farm, but I was stuck baking and cooking and cleaning with Mama inside. Okay, so you've got again, you have the two women cooking inside. Is it culture, time, or place? You could argue it's time. It's time period, right? And we learned about that with Salva during his time period. Girls didn't go to school; they stayed home with their moms to learn how to work in the house. But you could also argue maybe it could be a little bit of culture, right? And cultures can change; they can evolve. That was the way Salva's culture did it. Is it still the same? Salva's culture today in 2020? I don't know. Probably not. A lot of women go to school now. And how would this affect your identity? Obviously, back then, it would definitely affect your identity if you never went to school. Women who only stayed in the house might not have had the same experiences as their male, or did not have the same experiences as their male colleagues, and that would definitely affect their identity as they grew up.